If you quietly look at the technology world in 2026, you will notice something fascinating happening beneath the surface. It is not loud like the smartphone wars, and it does not dominate mainstream headlines the way artificial intelligence announcements do. But in developer communities, tech forums, classrooms, and even corporate offices, there is a quiet revolution unfolding. The operating system landscape is slowly shifting, and at the center of that shift stands one Linux distribution that keeps appearing in conversations again and again. That distribution is Ubuntu. For years, Linux has been seen by many outsiders as a fragmented ecosystem filled with hundreds of distributions that confuse newcomers. People often imagine Linux as a hobbyist playground where enthusiasts argue endlessly about package managers, desktop environments, and kernel versions. While that image still contains a grain of truth, the reality in 2026 is much more focused and practical. In this new era, one distribution has become the entry point, the reference platform, and the quiet leader of the Linux desktop experience. Ubuntu has gradually become the distro that represents Linux for millions of users around the world. To understand why Ubuntu is dominating conversations in 2026, we first need to understand the environment that allowed it to rise. Over the last decade, the computing world changed dramatically. Cloud computing exploded, developers embraced open-source tools, and companies began prioritizing platform flexibility over rigid ecosystems. Linux, which had always been strong on servers, suddenly became more relevant on the desktop again. Developers wanted their laptops to behave more like their servers. Students wanted systems that could run programming tools without limitations. And companies wanted secure and customizable environments. This shift created the perfect opportunity for Linux distributions to evolve beyond their niche status. Yet even within the Linux community, not all distros adapted equally well. Some distributions remained focused on experimentation. Others emphasized minimalism for advanced users, and some simply struggled to keep pace with the rapidly changing demands of modern computing. In contrast, Ubuntu consistently positioned itself as the Linux distribution that balances power with accessibility. Ubuntu's dominance in 2026 is not the result of a single breakthrough moment. Instead, it is the result of years of careful development, strategic decisions, and a philosophy centered on making Linux approachable without compromising its open-source foundation. From the moment Ubuntu first appeared in the early 2000s, it carried a simple but powerful idea: Linux should be usable by everyone. That vision may sound obvious today, but at the time it was revolutionary. Back then, many Linux distributions required deep technical knowledge just to perform basic tasks. Installing software often meant compiling code manually. Configuring hardware drivers could take hours, and graphical interfaces were inconsistent across systems. Ubuntu entered that environment with a promise of simplicity. It offered predictable releases, strong hardware compatibility, and a user-friendly desktop experience. Fast forward to 2026, and that same philosophy continues to define Ubuntu's role in the Linux ecosystem. When someone installs Linux for the first time today, there is a high chance they start with Ubuntu. Not because it is the only option, but because it is the option that consistently works. Part of Ubuntu's success comes from its predictable release cycle. Ubuntu releases a new version every 6 months and a long-term support version every 2 years. These long-term support releases, often called LTS versions, receive updates and security patches for many years. This predictability makes Ubuntu attractive not only to individuals, but also to businesses and educational institutions that need stability. Imagine a university computer lab deploying hundreds of Linux machines for students. The administrators need an operating system that will remain secure and supported for years without requiring constant upgrades. Ubuntu's LTS releases solve that problem. They provide stability without sacrificing modern features, and they allow institutions to standardize their environments. Another reason Ubuntu dominates discussions in 2026 is its deep integration with modern development workflows. Today's developers rely on tools like containers, virtualization, and cloud environments. Ubuntu has positioned itself at the center of that ecosystem. Many cloud platforms use Ubuntu images as their default server environment, which means developers often encounter Ubuntu long before they ever install Linux on their personal computers. When those developers decide to run Linux locally, the natural choice becomes Ubuntu. The commands they already know work the same way, the package repositories contain familiar tools, and the community documentation is extensive. In many ways, Ubuntu has become the bridge connecting desktop Linux with the massive world of cloud infrastructure. But Ubuntu's influence is not limited to developers. In 2026, many everyday users are discovering Linux for entirely different reasons. Some are concerned about privacy. Others want better performance on older hardware. Some simply want to escape subscription-based ecosystems that increasingly define commercial operating systems. For these users, Ubuntu offers an appealing alternative. It provides a polished desktop environment, strong application support, and an installation process that has become remarkably simple. Installing Ubuntu today often takes less than 20 minutes, and the system usually recognizes hardware automatically. Wi-Fi works out of the box, graphics drivers install easily, and software can be downloaded through a graphical store. This ease of use is particularly important because the Linux audience has expanded beyond traditional enthusiasts. Students, designers, writers, and remote workers are now exploring Linux environments. Many of them are not interested in learning complex terminal commands right away. They want a system that simply works, and Ubuntu consistently delivers that experience. Of course, Ubuntu does not exist in isolation. The Linux ecosystem still contains many excellent distributions, each serving different audiences. Fedora continues to push innovation with cutting-edge technologies. Linux Mint focuses on familiarity for users transitioning from Windows. Arch Linux attracts advanced users who want complete control over their systems. Yet despite this diversity, Ubuntu often sits at the center of the conversation. Many distributions are actually built on top of Ubuntu itself, inheriting its software repositories and compatibility layers. This means that even when users choose a different distribution, they may still be relying on Ubuntu's underlying infrastructure. Another factor contributing to Ubuntu's influence is its massive community. Open-source software thrives on collaboration, and Ubuntu has one of the largest and most active communities in the Linux world. Forums, tutorials, and troubleshooting guides are abundant. When a user encounters a problem, chances are someone else has already documented the solution. This community-driven support system lowers the barrier for newcomers. Instead of feeling isolated, users feel part of a global network of people who share knowledge and help each other succeed. That sense of belonging is one of the hidden strengths of open-source ecosystems. In 2026, Ubuntu also benefits from a mature desktop environment that feels both modern and stable. The GNOME desktop used by Ubuntu has evolved significantly over the years. It now offers smooth animations, intuitive navigation, and strong accessibility features. The interface feels clean and professional, which makes Ubuntu suitable for both personal and professional environments. Performance has also improved dramatically. Modern versions of Ubuntu are optimized for a wide range of hardware, from powerful workstations to modest laptops. Many users are surprised to discover that older computers run faster on Ubuntu than they did on previous operating systems. This efficiency has become especially valuable as people look for ways to extend the lifespan of their devices. Security is another major reason. Ubuntu stands out in 2026. Cybersecurity threats have become increasingly sophisticated, and users are more aware of the importance of secure computing environments. Ubuntu benefits from Linux's strong permission model and active security updates. Because Ubuntu is open source, its code can be inspected and improved by developers worldwide. Vulnerabilities are often identified and patched quickly, sometimes faster than in proprietary systems. For organizations handling sensitive data, this transparency is a major advantage. Corporate adoption has also played a crucial role in Ubuntu's rise. Many companies now deploy Linux desktops for developers, engineers, and IT professionals. Ubuntu frequently becomes the distribution of choice because it offers enterprise support through Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu. Canonical provides professional services, security maintenance, and infrastructure tools that allow businesses to manage large deployments of Ubuntu systems. This combination of community-driven development and professional support makes Ubuntu appealing to organizations that require reliability. One of the most interesting aspects of Ubuntu's dominance is how quietly it has happened. Unlike flashy technology trends that capture headlines for a few months and then fade away, Ubuntu's growth has been steady and persistent. Year after year, more people install it, more developers build tools around it, and more organizations adopt it as their standard environment. This gradual momentum is why many observers describe Ubuntu's rise as a quiet revolution. It did not rely on aggressive marketing or dramatic announcements. Instead, it grew through trust, reliability, and the collective efforts of thousands of contributors. Another important element of this revolution is education. In many universities around the world, students learn programming, data science, and cybersecurity on Linux systems. Ubuntu is frequently the distribution used in these environments because of its stability and extensive documentation. Students who learn Linux through Ubuntu often continue using it in their professional careers. Over time, this creates a generation of developers who are comfortable with the Ubuntu ecosystem. As these developers move into companies and startups, they bring their preferences with them. The influence of Ubuntu also extends into emerging technologies. Artificial intelligence development, robotics, and embedded systems often rely on Linux environments. Ubuntu has positioned itself as a versatile platform capable of supporting these workloads. For example, many machine learning frameworks provide installation guides specifically for Ubuntu. Robotics platforms frequently recommend Ubuntu for development environments. Even edge computing devices often run customized versions of Ubuntu behind the scenes. This widespread compatibility reinforces Ubuntu's position as the default Linux platform. When developers choose tools, they naturally gravitate toward the environment with the most support and documentation. In many cases, that environment is Ubuntu. Of course, no technology is perfect, and Ubuntu has faced criticism over the years. Some users argue that its design decisions occasionally prioritize simplicity over flexibility. Others prefer rolling release distributions that deliver the newest software versions immediately. These criticisms highlight an important truth about Linux. Diversity remains one of its greatest strengths. Different distributions serve different needs, and users are free to choose the environment that best fits their workflows. Yet even critics often acknowledge Ubuntu's role in expanding the reach of Linux. By making the operating system accessible to newcomers, Ubuntu has helped grow the entire ecosystem. Many users who start with Ubuntu eventually explore other distributions, bringing their knowledge and enthusiasm with them. In that sense, Ubuntu acts as a gateway into the broader Linux world. It introduces people to concepts like open-source software, package management, and community collaboration. Once users become comfortable with these ideas, they often develop a deeper appreciation for the flexibility that Linux provides. Looking ahead, the future of Ubuntu in 2026 and beyond appears remarkably strong. The distribution continues to evolve while maintaining the core principles that made it successful. Its developers focus on improving performance, refining the user interface, and strengthening integration with modern technologies. Meanwhile, the global shift toward open-source solutions shows no sign of slowing down. Governments, universities, and companies increasingly recognize the value of transparent and customizable software platforms. Linux distributions are likely to play an even larger role in that future, and Ubuntu is well positioned to remain at the center of the movement. For everyday users, the quiet revolution of Ubuntu represents more than just a technical milestone. It represents a change in how people think about computing. Instead of being locked into a single ecosystem controlled by one company, users now have the freedom to choose a platform built on collaboration and shared innovation. That freedom is the true spirit of Linux. And in 2026, Ubuntu stands as the distribution that has carried that spirit into the mainstream. What began as an ambitious project to make Linux accessible has evolved into a global platform used by millions. From classrooms to data centers, from personal laptops to cloud infrastructure, Ubuntu has woven itself into the fabric of modern computing. The revolution may be quiet, but its impact is undeniable. Ubuntu is no longer just another Linux distribution. In 2026, Ubuntu has become the distribution that defines what Linux means to the world.